Welcome back to the Fishbowl. I'm Jade, and first and foremost, thank you for giving me your time because time is one thing people can never get back. And the fact that you chose to spend a piece of yours here with me tonight, that means something. So go ahead and put on your scuba gear because tonight we're diving deep. Tonight's conversation is delicate, emotional, layered. And for some people, this conversation may touch places they normally avoid because tonight we're talking about emotionally unavailable mothers. And before anybody gets defensive, before anybody feels attacked, before anybody starts thinking this is about blaming women or disrespecting mothers, let me say this clearly. There is no manual for motherhood. Nobody wakes up already knowing how to emotionally nurture another human being. Some women mother the way they saw their mother do it. Some women mother from survival mode. Some women are healing while raising children at the same time. And some mothers gave everything they had emotionally, while others simply did not know how. And if we're being honest, a lot of our mothers came from generations where survival mattered more than emotional expression. Generations where softness was seen as weakness, where children were fed, clothed, protected, disciplined, but not always emotionally understood, because emotional intelligence was not something many people were taught, especially in environments where life was already hard. You remember growing up and hearing things like, I'm not one of your little friends. And most people can recall hearing that somewhere around their teenage years. The stage older generations used to call the smelling yourself stage, the phase where children begin discovering their identity, questioning things, wanting independence, developing confidence, opinions, boundaries, emotions, and for many mothers, that stage created tension because suddenly the child who once depended on you for everything now has their own thoughts, their own personality. And sometimes mothers struggle with that transition, especially mothers who were never emotionally nurtured themselves, because emotionally unavailable parenting does not always look cruel. Sometimes it looks like emotional distance, dismissing feelings, avoiding difficult conversations, not knowing how to comfort, or believing that strength means not showing emotion. And sometimes a mother looks at a child and thinks they're strong, they'll be okay, without realizing that the strong child still needed softness too. And psychologically, children adapt to emotional environments in different ways. Some children become hyper independent. Some stop expressing emotions altogether. Some become people pleasers searching for validation. Some struggle with intimacy later in life. Some grow up feeling uncomfortable with vulnerability. And some spend adulthood trying to earn affection they should have received naturally. Because when emotional needs go unmet, children usually do not process it by thinking. My parent is emotionally unavailable because of their own unresolved pain. No, most children internalize it. They think, maybe something is wrong with me. And that belief can quietly follow people into adulthood, into friendships, relationships, marriages, even parenting. And socially, many of us were raised in communities where survival was praised more than emotional connection, where mothers carried households on their backs, worked nonstop, sacrificed constantly, and equated providing with love. And to be fair, providing is love. Sacrificing is love. Protecting your children is love. But emotional presence matters too. And this conversation is important because two things can be true at once. A mother can deeply love her child and still struggle emotionally. A mother can have good intentions and still leave emotional gaps. Intent and impact are not always the same thing. And we also have to think about the child's perspective because no two children experience parenting the same way. One child may interpret strictness as protection. Another may experience it as rejection. One child may become resilient, another may become emotionally withdrawn. Sometimes siblings raised in the exact same household walk away carrying completely different emotional experiences. And what's interesting is that for some mothers and daughters, or mothers and sons, the relationship changes with time because 20 years later, some become inseparable, best friends, talking every day, laughing together, understanding each other in ways they never could before. Almost like both people finally met each other as human beings instead of only as parent and child. But for others, that closeness never comes. And that truth deserves space too. Because healing does not always look like becoming best friends. Sometimes healing looks like understanding what happened, grieving what you didn't receive, accepting what a person could or could not give, setting boundaries, protecting your peace, and choosing not to carry resentment into every future relationship. And one of the hardest questions people eventually ask themselves is healing even worth it at some point? And that answer looks different for everybody because some relationships truly heal. Some people finally have the conversations they waited years to have. Some mothers apologize, some children soften, some families reconnect in beautiful ways. But sometimes healing is internal. Sometimes the relationship stays distant. Sometimes the dynamic remains emotionally unsafe. Sometimes boundaries become necessary. And sometimes people have to stop chasing the version of love they hoped for in order to make peace with reality. And that does not make somebody bitter, it makes them honest. Because healing is not pretending pain never happened. Healing is no longer allowing that pain to control your identity, your relationships, your choices, or your self worth. And maybe tonight is not about deciding who was right or wrong. Maybe tonight is about understanding generational survival, emotional patterns, unspoken pain, and asking ourselves how we love better moving forward. Because sometimes our parents gave us everything they had, and sometimes what they had simply was not emotional availability. But awareness changes things, accountability changes things, communication changes things, and healing, when both people are willing, can change generations. So tonight, inside the fishbowl, we're asking, can a mother love you deeply and still be emotionally unavailable? And if so, how does that shape the adults we become? And more importantly, how do we heal from it without blame, without shame, and without losing ourselves in the process? The fishbowl is where the conversations are real. The truth gets uncomfortable. And healing sometimes begins with finally saying the quiet part out loud. Thank you for sitting in the bowl with me tonight, for your honesty, your vulnerability, and your willingness to dive into conversations that many people spend their whole lives avoiding. Now it's time to decompress, breathe a little deeper, and slowly return to the surface. Because healing does not always happen in loud moments. Sometimes it begins quietly with understanding, reflection, and finally, feeling seen. You can listen on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube.